Imagine an ancient human tribe. The night is pitch black. A fire burns brightly in the center. Dozens of bodies huddle tightly together. They desperately crave warmth. They seek safety in numbers, but look closer at the shadows. One figure stands far away from the flames. They face the dark tree line. The cold wind hits their face. They do not flinch. They deeply prefer the chilling silence. This was the ancient sentinel. Now step into the modern world. It is Friday night. The city pulses with loud music. Crowds pack into suffocating bars. Your apartment remains perfectly quiet. Your phone screen stays entirely dark. You sit completely alone. Society looks at this scene with deep horror. Extroverts pity your quiet existence. Well-meaning friends try to drag you outside. Therapists quickly label your behavior as a concerning disorder. They call it avoidance. They assume it is clinical depression. They are completely wrong. You are not fundamentally broken. You have simply achieved something extremely rare. You possess complete psychological self-sufficiency. Most videos on this topic completely miss the mark. They treat introversion like a mild, quirky trait. They offer generic tips for surviving loud parties. That approach is incredibly insulting to your neurology. We must dig much deeper into the science. Psychologist Ester Buchholz spent years studying this exact phenomenon at NYU. She discovered a radical truth about human nature. Extreme solitude is not a strange personality flaw. She coined a very specific clinical term. She called it alone time. This is a strict biological necessity. It is just as vital as eating. It is just as crucial as physical attachment. Let that reality sink in. Your isolation is not a tragic symptom. It is a profound developmental need. It builds an iron shield around your core identity. It rigorously guards your creative spirit from external noise. The ancient sentinel from our story required this exact trait. Evolution literally demanded it. Every successful tribe required a few lone wolves. They needed fearless scouts to wander into unknown territory. They needed brilliant inventors to sit alone with their thoughts. These rare individuals functioned entirely without group validation. The modern crowd demands strict conformity. The modern crowd demands constant emotional mirroring. Sentinels flatly refuse to play that exhausting game. You carry this exact same genetic programming today. Dr. John Cassiopo proved this at the University of Chicago. He looked closely at loneliness sensitivity. He found something absolutely staggering. 50% of this sensitivity is entirely heritable. It is literally hardwired into your DNA. Some brains simply require significantly less social input. Your nervous system operates on a completely different frequency. A crowded room aggressively spikes your cortisol. Meaningless small talk rapidly drains your vital energy. Silence acts as your ultimate neurological reset button. Silence instantly lowers your resting heart rate. Silence brings your analytical mind back online. Researchers Long and Averill studied this deeply quiet state. They found solitude actively strips away all self-consciousness. You stop obsessively worrying about your facial expressions. You stop carefully monitoring your tone of voice. The heavy social mask finally drops to the floor. This unlocks massive reserves of deep internal reflection. It triggers explosive bursts of pure, unrestrained creativity. But society absolutely hates this level of independence. Here is a fascinating, counterintuitive finding from the research. Solitude seekers rarely withdraw first. They are usually actively ostracized by the group early on. People subconsciously sense your total lack of neediness. They find your quiet independence incredibly threatening. They maliciously push you to the social margins. Imagine a typical workplace lunch setting. You politely decline an invitation to eat together. You just want to read a book in complete peace. Your coworkers immediately exchange weird, paranoid glances. They silently label you as deeply arrogant. They permanently stop inviting you to casual meetings. They systematically ice you out of the hierarchy. Society aggressively punishes your natural biological preference. Then it turns around to ruthlessly blame you for isolating. It is a brilliant and toxic psychological trap. Do not ever fall for their manipulative guilt trip. However, you must hear this next part extremely clearly. Not all solitude is created equal. This is where standard self-help advice fails you completely. They tell you to just blindly embrace your alone time. They conveniently ignore the highly dangerous dark side of isolation. You need a precise analytical tool to survive this. We call this framework the Solitude Spectrum audit. This audit forcibly separates high performers from helpless victims. There are 3 distinct psychological zones of isolation. You must identify your exact current location immediately. Let us deeply examine Zone 1. This is the restorative zone. This is the exclusive realm of the elite sentinel. You actively choose this quiet time from a position of power. It is a highly deliberate, strategic decision. You enter this zone to rapidly recharge your internal batteries. You read incredibly dense books. You build massive, complex projects. You meditate in total, unbroken stillness. You feel a profound sense of heavy internal peace. Your mind feels incredibly sharp. You can easily return to society later without friction. You simply prefer the unmatched power of your own company. This is the ultimate psychological peak state. Now let us look darkly at Zone 2. This is the reactive zone. This is where heavy self-deception usually begins. Most people proudly think they live in Zone 1. They are actually hopelessly trapped right here in Zone 2. You do not choose this solitude from a place of strength. You use it to violently escape intense social pain. You cowardly retreat after a harsh personal rejection. You hide away after a totally awkward social failure. This is a weak defensive coping mechanism. It is not a genuine biological preference at all. You are literally just running away from the fire. You are sadly licking your wounds in the dark. Your solitude feels heavily polluted with buzzing anxiety. You obsessively replay intensely embarrassing memories. A dark, bitter resentment slowly starts to build in your chest. You falsely convince yourself you hate all people. You secretly still desperately crave their warm validation. This exact contradiction slowly tears your mind apart. You must brutally audit your own real motives today. Ask yourself a very hard question. Are you seeking genuine peace, or are you blindly fleeing sheer terror? Finally, we reach the dreaded Zone 3. This is the entrenchment zone. This is the absolute critical danger zone. Solitude has entirely stopped being a useful high-performance tool. It has dangerously mutated into your entire fragile identity. The outside world feels like an active, lethal threat. You build an impenetrable iron wall around your daily life. You aggressively reject every single tiny bid for connection. Even incredibly minor interactions trigger extreme internal panic. A sudden, loud knock at your door spikes your adrenaline. A ringing cell phone feels exactly like a physical attack. You have completely lost the vital ability to socially adapt. The ancient sentinel eventually always returned to the warm fire. You stubbornly refuse to ever go back. You are literally slowly starving in the psychological dark. You must recognize these 3 strict boundaries clearly. Stay fiercely protective of your sacred Zone 1. Quickly forgive yourself when you accidentally slip into Zone 2. Fight like absolute hell to permanently escape Zone 3. Stop letting ordinary, mediocre people pathologize your nature. Your unusually high need for solitude is a rare weapon. It allows you to clearly see things others blindly miss. It grants you total immunity to cheap, modern peer pressure. It makes you virtually impossible to emotionally manipulate. Dark psychological predators target the desperate and the lonely. They cannot ever control someone who genuinely needs absolutely nothing. You hold the ultimate, unshakable leverage in any relationship. You are always perfectly willing to simply walk away. You deeply know your own quiet company is a luxury. You guard your mental energy with brutal, ruthless efficiency. This is true elite high performance. This is absolute, undeniable psychological mastery. You finally understand the raw kinetic power of your silence. You completely own your historical identity as the Sentinel. But spending so much time completely alone creates a strange side effect. You spend countless, uninterrupted hours locked inside your own head. You meticulously study every single stray thought that crosses your mind. You naturally become intensely hyper-self-aware. You develop a cold, ruthlessly logical inner voice. This creates a fascinating new psychological mutation when something incredibly painful finally happens to you. You surprisingly do not break down in pathetic tears. You do not throw a messy, dramatic tantrum. You actually do not feel much emotion at all. The hot tears simply stubbornly refuse to fall. The burning rage never quite fully materializes. You detach completely from the raw, visceral pain. You calmly float above your own paralyzed physical body. You stare down at your fresh trauma like a clinical scientist. You put your messy feelings under a cold, sterile microscope. You neatly categorize the specific type of hurt. You verbally label the exact internal psychological triggers. You do literally everything except actually process the raw pain. You just coldly, quietly observe the ongoing mental destruction. This is a highly advanced emotional defense mechanism. It is brilliantly effective, but also incredibly mentally dangerous. To finally understand why your brain does this, you must click the video on your screen right now.